Plan is guillotines. We're looking at arm in, arm out, various other variations of it. So what I'll start with then is just, if you know, or if you haven't even done a guillotine before, just have 2 or 3 minutes just doing guillotines, just see what you know about them, share ideas, and then we'll come back and we'll prove everyone wrong. But take it easy. Don't fucking rag each other's necks off. So go do some guillotines, and then we'll share ideas on it, and then I'll argue that you're all wrong. So first thing then is... First thing then is, with every kind of submission that we're looking at from being on our backs, breaking their posture, because like Jake was just saying, try and get guillotines right now with people who have got really strong posture in their backs is fucking impossible. And when we go through like the parts of the guillotine, like it's easy then to fuck up someone's guillotine and make them just try and rag it on. So if we go from the end, what I'm looking for, like my preference when I'm doing guillotines is I go for this bent wrist grip. So I swing it around the neck, try and get as deep as I can, because I want to try and impact the arteries as much as possible. So just be aware when you're doing guillotines that you're not just ragging through the windpipe. Try and put it on where you're not putting a lot of pressure through the windpipe or anything like that. And you're going through more the side of the neck. A, because you're more likely to actually get a choke if you do that and put them out. But B, just for safety in the gym, where you're not damaging people's windpipes. Because I was talking to Rob this morning, like he had his windpipe hurt in a roll a few weeks ago, and it swelled up and that kind of shit. And if you damage someone's windpipe, it will just swell and it'll cause them all manner of problems depending on how much damage you do. You can break cartilage and shit in there, so just try and avoid ever cranking shit through there. Try and go for your chokes, and you put on as little effort as possible and try and get the right accuracy. Don't just try and squeeze for fuck's sake. So when I'm doing a guillotine, I prefer going for this wrist grip here, and I put my finger inside the hole. So if I'm doing, sorry, neck, I'll be as light as I can. So if neck, you see it, so you can see my arms. When I go for the guillotine, I'll try and go around as much as I can, try and get my elbow to touch his neck. If there's a gap where my elbow is, there's more likely, I'll go for that in a minute, why. I want to make sure my elbow is touching his neck. And then if I just go flat onto my back, it's going to be very hard to finish. So I have to fully go onto my side and try and get his head to the floor. The more on my side I am, the easier it is to finish the guillotine. I'm not squeezing with this arm. I'm actually going to throw this elbow towards the ring. So as I go onto my side, this elbow travels in front of the shoulder, and that wraps off around the two arteries. Does that make sense? So as I go around here, that makes contact with the other side. So essentially it's almost like a rear naked choke. So we're going to go through that detail anyway about standing versions of this. But essentially I'm trying to get my elbow in front of here, and then fold up on both sides. So if I can sit in front of his collarbone, it's much easier to finish the guillotine. So I'm through. It's sitting against his arteries, and then as I come round to the side, it goes onto both sides of his arteries. So if I can sit in front of his collarbone, it's much easier. Then that grip will open up his neck more. So once more. I've gone round. I want to break his head down, his posture using my lat as well. Because if you can posture his neck, I'm going to have a hard time finishing the guillotine. So I always try and break a posture by using my lat. Just put his head down. Through to the side, you see his head's on the floor, and then elevation of this elbow. So this one's dead. So through, deep as you can, make sure the elbow touches, and over. A couple of details there then, which are kind of critical. If you want to practice these extra ones as well, be my guest. So anytime you're doing a choke, try and go open arm to begin with. So if you imagine like cutting with scissors, and I wanted to cut like a bit of paper there, look how much scissor I'm missing. Like you go all the way into the crook of the scissors and then close, because by the time you've even got these two to touch, there's so much pressure going through the paper. If you cut the paper there, it doesn't work as effectively. It's the exact same with your chokes, is that that's the scissor. So if you're going to put their neck there and start closing, scissor might not even fucking close. But if you can get their neck inside the crook of the elbow, it's by the time you even start closing, get a little bit, you're putting a lot more pressure. And that can be half time why your rear naked chokes don't work. Is that if I go for a rear naked and I go bent arm here, there's a massive gap. He can get his fingers in there. And so the amount of times I have to squeeze, because he's in the end of the scissor, is a lot more than it should. But if I go open elbow, make sure I can feel something touching there, the pressure is much higher. It applies to arm triangles, north-south chokes, any kind of choke you want. If you go with a bent arm to begin with, you're missing out half the scissoring action. Let's say for the arm triangle, so if he's on his back. Yeah, this way. Here, if I go with a bent arm, and I try and squeeze my shoulder down, look, there's a giant gap. You can fit his fingers in there. But if I go open arm, by the time I even start closing it, the pressure's on. So just think about that when you're doing your guillotine. Just make sure there's an open elbowed attack. Make sure your inner elbow keeps contact with the neck and then close it up. Wrist grip, sit in front of the shoulder, sling it across. Off you go, feel it. Just to add, I know, not that there's an issue, that will look good, but just to add, like, so you're kind of understanding around those details. We'll look at the like the prayer choke and various other standing guillotines, or like the upside down rear naked. It's back. So if he's more upright, say if we're standing here, if I went through his neck and got my elbow in front of his windpipe just directly, you can look at this almost like a rear naked choke. Like it's just he's upside down. I'd apply the exact same ideas. So I can, at this point, just lift my hands up and I'm putting pressure directly up through his neck. Does that make sense? I'm just using gravity just to go straight upright.
Keep your chest out of the top of his head.
Well, that's what I was going to go to. So I can do the one where we're at the side. So we move this way, switch sides. So if I sling it, again, elbow contact, keep him at the side and just go upright. So I'm just pushing, again, just creating that V and just going up into the neck. Sorry. Or, like the one I've been using a lot from standing, is to go over the top, get their head in front of my stomach, and go for a rear naked from this grip. So I'm just trapping the head against my stomach. So here, but it's the exact same grip as a rear naked. Hand on the elbow, hand on the back of the head. But his head's trapped against my stomach. So it's like literally a rear naked, just he's upside down. And then I can put the pressure in. Yeah. I just close it up against his arteries. But it's the exact same choke. You can even look at the bulldog choke the exact same way. They're all the same. Is that here, this is just a guillotine the wrong way. Where I get my elbow in front of his neck and then put upright. It's all the same shit. I'm trying to get something to create a V around his neck, and then I close it up around his neck. Does that make sense? So you can look at that with the same with the prayer choke, the upside down rear naked, the bulldog choke. It's all the same idea of just putting pressure through there with an open elbow. So go feel that. Go broaden your understanding of those kind of like, it's the same shit. And then you can come back and do it again from the regular guillotine of just like, right, I want to create that V and then create that tension around the neck. Make sense? Go add those little ideas and then go back to the original guillotine. One thing you don't do is you don't go for a guillotine while someone's in side control. Well, no, as in like if you're on the bottom of side control, don't bother going for a guillotine. So if Naki, and we're going to put this into a regular guillotine as well. So if he's gone for that same guillotine, I've managed to get my head out to the side here. No, so yeah. Yeah. So if I manage to get my head out to the side, see the V's created is at the wrong side of my neck. So he pulls down hard, nothing's going to happen, just pulls his chin into my chest. But he leaves himself open to a von Flue. Is that if I can go straight arm under his neck, clasp, Then I'm using my ear to push his head towards his shoulder as I lean into his neck. The more open my elbow is as I make contact, the easier this choke is. If I go bent arm to begin with, it's a lot harder. If I go straight arm, make my connection, keep that connection, and then make this as a close around his neck. It's just an arm triangle, but on the wrong side. So I'm using my ear to push his shoulder up because he's flared his shoulder by going for the guillotine. So that pushes up in towards his neck. Exactly the same as I would if I was on this side, go for an arm triangle. It's just the other way around. That pushes up, that closes around his neck. The reason why this is important is that if you're posturing up in someone's guillotine, you can do it from inside their guard. Is that if, you can do it to me. So if I go for a guillotine on neck, he strains up his posture so I can't bend his neck. And even if I put his head on the floor, so you can stay in guard and do this. Let's go take this out so I don't end up crushing it. So if I go for the guillotine and he postures up, then he flings his shoulder over the top of my neck, sits himself up, joins his hands together, and then he can choke me out from within my own guard with a Von Flue choke. So, yeah. So, yeah, it was a fucking machine. So yeah, Naki's got hold of my head. If I posture, make sure he can't close his hands around my shoulder. Now, as long as if he pulls, he isn't going to do anything. He has to get in front of my neck. So I'm pushing this shoulder here into his sternum. So he can't make contact with my arteries on both sides. From there, I can posture, sling, open elbow, join my hands together, pull down his back. So my hand here is pulling down towards his hip. I can then come up, pushing his shoulder up into his neck as I choke him on the other side. So exactly the same as the Von Flue, done the other way. So practice the Von Flue in the regular way, where they fucked up the guillotine, you're on the wrong side. On the good side, bad if you're doing a guillotine. And you're then going to just go deep underneath here, make sure you've got contact, push the shoulder up and towards the neck, and that causes the choke, the same as an arm triangle. Then just do it from inside their close guard when they're going for a guillotine. Enjoy. Last couple of parts of this then is, again, understanding how this head-only choke, as it applies around to various things. So the difference between a guillotine and a bulldog choke, as you just saw, is just facing the wrong way. Same with the rear naked choke and the upside down rear naked choke. It's just, again, they're just facing the wrong way. And the exact same applies when it comes to north-south chokes and guillotines from mount, is that it's just where their chin is facing changes the choke. So if Naki's in bottom side, for example, and I've caught his neck, other way. Yeah. So if I've caught on his neck during a pass or something like that, and I've gone around his neck here, depending where his chin is, will depend what choke I go for. So if his chin's facing outwards, as in towards the ring, it's a north-south choke. And the way I finish this is I'm just going to grab hold of my thigh with this hand here and keep it so my elbow can stay connected to his neck. Because again, if I go bent arm, I lose a lot of elbow impact. If I push with my lat towards my elbow and crush his head, as I slide down now, I get my choke. So it's connected. I'm crushing his head in between my lat and my elbow. And as I just slide down, my hand travels up. And I get my choke. So I'm doing this. So I've got his head. As I slide down, my hand travels up. So here, grabbing onto my thigh, I can lie into it. That's what I mean, as in if their chin's facing out, it's a north-south. If their chin turns in to defend the north-south, it's a mounted guillotine. Because I'm going to just come over the top. So no matter how he faces, he's going to put himself in a choke. So instead of just crushing his face with the north-south, I can just now move all the way to a mounted guillotine. And the finish is the exact same. Open up, elbow to the ground. To make it easier when you do the transition, create a hand sandwich where as I go around his neck and I can feel his chin towards my chest and I'm going for the mounted guillotine, I sandwich my hand between our chests. So if he wants to now find the grip to strip it, there's no hand there because it's hidden between our chests. And I can keep it there hidden until I've got my mount. There's still no hand for him to find because it's hidden in our chest. I can set myself up, elbow in tight, touching the neck so I haven't got a bent elbow. And down. So I'm not bridging up, trying to rip his head off again. I'm creating that elbow on the floor, that tent. And the only thing that changes is which way his head faces. So if his head faces outwards, so if I've slung and his head goes out, it's a north-south choke. If all of a sudden he realizes he's going to get stuck in north-south and puts his head in, it's a mountain guillotine. Nothing changes as soon as I've got that grip. If all of a sudden he realizes he's going to get stuck in a guillotine and puts his chin in my chest, it's north-south. So he throws himself into a choke no matter which way he looks. They're the same choke, just the chin changes. Feel it? As soon as you catch the head on top like that, you can just keep it and you're going to finish somehow. I'll show you one last choke and then you can just drill and we'll put these details in so you can just play with the details. Last one then is the arm in, which if you're only comfortable with head only guillotines where you've just got the head alone, you're going to have a problem because, you'll get arm in versions and then you'll abandon it because you'll think, shit, I can't finish this. So you're going to move to just head only and you're going to lose control. So if I've got hold of Naki's neck, arm in version, if I go this side. There you go, so you can see. If I've got his head only, fine, we'll go for what we've already done. But if his arm's around my body and I've got hold of my grip, if I let go to re-establish to an arm in, I've let go of him for a second. He can pop his head out, he can fight me, he can grab all my grips, I can lose my contact. So I have to now to finish this just in case I end up here where I've got hold of his head and his arm. When I finish this one, again, you don't go onto your back, you go onto your side. And the way I'm going to finish it is actually by folding his head underneath and pulling his hips to his head and really folding him in half and like cutting through him like paper through the middle. The grip I prefer to use, I used to use a like thumb grip where I just travel around his neck and sit my thumb against here, almost like I'm going to like pull it across his throat and then sit underneath my hand. My preferred grip now is to go for that same bent wrist and go for reverse gable and just like literally just go come around and grab hold of my own thumb. So here, this has gone through. I'm just going to grab hold of my own thumb here. Again, elbow nice and tight against the neck. I lie on my side. And I push his head with my trap and my shoulder down towards his hips here. So I'm really curling myself in there. And now all I'm going to do is just kick my feet towards my head. So I'm not reaching. I slide there, pushing that in. Got my reverse gable. And I'm just going to do a crunch. Pull my feet, pull his hips towards his head. And that alone, whilst that kind of brings this arm up, is just going to choke him. Open elbow. Establish my grip. Fully onto my side because I want his head to hit the floor so I can bend his head in. Really curl his head towards itself and towards his groin. And then as I kick this leg up, it's just going to kick my arm. And that gets my choke. Here, down, up. Make sense? It's the hardest one to finish, hardest one to learn, but it's probably the most useful version of a guillotine because you're more likely to end up in that situation. And I remember being as a blue belt, this was like my black belt killer. Like if I could use this a lot and win against people who are much better than me, just because it's a choke that no one believes exists. Like finishing arm and guillotines is really hard. Apart from, I think it was Jeff Glover and then a bit of Braulio kind of informed this, but go feel it. It's probably the worst choke we've got. Off you go. I know, I saw it. You don't have to tell me. We'll spend 5 minutes, just a couple of minutes. So just a recap. Be here, sir. Yeah, if it's everything we've done is kind of like circling around the fucking drain on this, but it's the same shit. Like either way, if I get hold of his neck, I prefer using my wrist down grip So the top of my wrist is hitting him in the neck. Open elbow, your attacks, and break the posture. So both are posture breakers. Again, if I'm doing this, I want to push his head down as I go for the guillotine. Same as if I'm doing the arm in. I'm still breaking his posture by using my lat to curl his head in. Open elbow, bent wrist. In. The only difference being if it's head only, I usually use my finger because I want to be able to throw my elbow over the top. If it's arm in, I go all the way in and hold my thumb because I allow myself to pull in deeper on the choke. So from here, head only, finger in, lie on my side, straight across the neck. The more on side I am, the easier it is, just that connection. And if it's head in, head and arm, again, open elbow, fruit grip, lie on the side, push his head down, and then just a little kick up with the hips. So 2 or 3 minutes just to like iron out some of the details of all those chokes, and then we'll start sparring. Off you go.